Knowing he could make her come with so little effort, she thought to herself, I want to come again. If I move into position, he can make it happen and it'll blow my mind again. In bed, naked, with my man, and that'll transport me to that euphoric state and then sleep again. How can I tell him that I want to come again without saying it? I mean, I'm still so kind of sleepy, and yet the growing and burning pleasure for an orgasm is so tempting right now. It didn't take much for him at this point to determine what was happening and that she wanted to come again. He made a few slight bodily moves to maneuver her onto her back, while still making out with her. He knew to keep his lips locked on hers while moving her body around and in place. This ensured that he got signals that she really was kind of awake and wanted something, and that she just wasn't still kind of in that sleep state. He then did just that, moved his free right hand to spread her legs open. If he was going to make her come, well, that's part of the process. It was easy to see that this is something she wanted right then and there, even without her asking for it. It was so simple. He could sense her every desire within seconds. He knew. He was always ready to make her come because he liked making her come. By moving her leg a few inches and in position, without any resistance from her, he exposed her horny doorbell, popping out wide into the open. With his finger fondling under the covers, it was clear that her body was heating up and ripe. This was a go. She wanted another orgasm right then and there. So, quietly, while not halting any kissing or tongue-licking dances between them, he proceeded to help make her come again. Moist hand on clit, mouth on mouth kissing and tonguing one another slowly, bodies close and hot, her free left hand clutching one of her breasts and fondling her own nipples. He then began to bobble her clit back and forth steadily for 5 to 10 minutes without deviating, stopping except to slide one of his fingers down her wet pink cherry line to help lubricate his finger with one swipe of her pink juice. Stopping his clitoral bobbing for just a few seconds seemed to briefly frustrate her, psychologically and sexually. But for 3 to 5 seconds, in that 3 to 5 seconds, he slowed the steady progress needed to help her orgasm along. He knew this would actually be a good thing for her. It made her want to achieve the big O that much more. Why did he stop when he was so close? He knew she might be thinking to herself, oh, please hurry, I'm frustrated. If I don't come soon with all that clitoral teasing and bobbing and twitching stimulation, it'll make me crazy. Don't leave me in this state of coming limbo, she thought. Again, knowing this, it didn't take more than 3 to 5 seconds to swipe up a little pink juice, a little pink lube, and return to his doorbell-throbbing, fun-filled duties. She loves that he's very quick and attentive to her needs like this. He doesn't let her suffer too long and feels him getting right back to the doorbell business at hand. No pun intended. On her way to orgasm, she thoroughly enjoys kissing him, mouth to mouth, locked in, steadily holding their tongues together and swapping fluids inside of their mouths. It's a turn-on for both of them, and which will help her come that much faster. She's almost there. He can feel her body start to shake in ways that are not normal. Clearly, the approach to her orgasm is having a mental impact on her, and her doorbell saying, I'm here. Hug me, take me, kiss me, lick me, twitch me. Let me scream out loud for you. I'm coming, baby. In that very moment, She removed her mouth from his quickly so she could breathe deeper and more openly. Her eyes rolled back. She grabbed him and then the bedsheet with all of her might, spreading her legs wider and kicking her feet into the air when she let out a scream. Yes! Yes! Oh, yes! I'm coming, baby! I'm coming! He grabbed her, pulled her in tight, kissed her again on the lips, exchanging slobbering, tongue-dancing moves as they made out during her climax to orgasm. She was elevated off the bed again by his strength and pulled quickly into the fetal position to cuddle with him. Again, she was completely and physically vulnerable and immobile in certain ways, having come so hard in the deepest part of the night like that. Awake and alert to what was going on with her, he took full responsibility to cater and care for her every need in that very moment. He then pulled the sheets over to make sure she was covered and warm. Again, she felt like she was flying high above the clouds in bed and in total ecstasy. Another fresh flush of blood had rushed through her veins and throughout her entire body. Her nervous system shocked with another more powerful orgasmic experience, and this was in the darkest of the night. And 2 in one night. 2 orgasms in one night. Her body becoming more familiar with coming and how it affects her mind, her limbs, her cute pink cherry box of moist wet love, her doorbell, her heart, and her growing love for this man. Was he selfish in any way for his own gain or pleasure during this time? Not at all. It was all about her again. After settling down and catching her breath, she returned to what was considered a normal state before having her brain circuits blown from another orgasm. She looked up at him while holding him close to her, smiled, and with only her eyes again said, "Thank you." He looked at her just the same and said, without saying it, "It's all for you, honey. Your pleasure is my pleasure." They kissed passionately again, slowly, steadily, and unhurriedly. Lips, tongues, mouths, moist and wet, while she basked in the glow of her most recent orgasm. Warm under the covers, she said to herself, "I love this man." Knowing his job was done, and done well, he rolled her over, wrapped his arms around her, spooned her, made sure the sheets and covers covered her shoulder so as to not get cold, and they fell asleep once more. This time, she fell asleep harder, faster, and deeper. It was late, around 3 or 4 a.m. by this time. They had been up several hours before, doing all kinds of naked activities that were having a new and profound effect on her mind, her body, and heart. "I don't ever want to leave this bed," she thought to herself as she fell asleep, smiling again, wrapped in his arms, and feeling loved and protected like she had never felt before. For him, his thoughts were simple. Hey, I made her happy again. I love that. She's smiling and falling asleep like a baby, safe in my arms. What's left for him to do was to just join her in her slumber. Perhaps tomorrow we'll discuss what we want to do. Until then, I'll just say, "Good night, my love." He then reached over to whisper in her ear ever so softly, and in his deep and seductive, resonating voice, "I love you." Those were the last words she heard from him that night before passing out into the night, smiling all the way right into Z-land. Morning came, fast this time, as they had slept so soundly, each of them dreaming of the other and how wonderful a time they had. During the night, they must have turned to face one another in their sleep. In doing so, when they woke up and opened their eyes, they saw each other, smiled, and quickly moved right in for a soft, sweet morning kiss. He reached round to grab her and pull her body in close. She embraced him with her arms just as well in return. She loved how he was always so warm. When she sleeps alone at her house, she usually goes to bed cold, lays in bed cold, and shivering almost, and even wakes up cold. Not these nights. No. Whenever she slept with him, he was her constant body heater. Warm as an oven, she slept snug, warm, toasty, happy, and in love. As they woke up a little more, he grabbed her in such a way as to let her rest her head on his chest and underneath his arm. It was then that he asked, "So, how do you feel?" She replied, "Lovely." She closed her eyes to ponder all that they had been through together in the past 10 hours or so, to be able to justify such a simple one-word answer. She smiled and grabbed his hand to clasp it and play with his fingers some. "I don't want to get out of bed. I want to stay here forever," she said. "Really, I love it here with you." These two bed souls were growing so infatuated with each other that it was beyond crazy. They loved laying in bed for hours on end, naked bodies cuddling, kissing, and sharing her orgasms. Who wouldn't want that? For once in her life, our love maiden wholeheartedly enjoyed total, intimate nudity with a man. Why so? Because this wasn't typical of the experiences that she had had with men she slept with in the past. They all either wanted to go to sleep and forget about her after the deed, not hug or hold her afterwards either, or they just got up and left the bed after a disappointing 20 to 30 minutes of him getting his needs met, only to leave her by saying, "Oh, I'll get you next time, babe." To make matters worse, most of those men never invited her to join them to participate in their daily routines or simple errands. Talk about being used for just one thing and then kicked out of bed or to the curb. Not this man. He lives for being in bed, staying in bed, and holding her as often as he can in bed. In fact, he even works in bed sometimes, consulting clients on the phone. Maybe that's why his bed is so comfortable. He needed it to be, with all the time he spends in bed. After another little round of kissing and smooching, she says to him, "I'm hungry." "You are? Well, I do feel like a shower, but I can make us breakfast before or after we shower up. What about you? What do you think? It's up to you." "Well, I say we shower after we have breakfast." "Great. What do you want for breakfast? What comes to mind?" "Well, how about one of your omelets?" "Your wish is my command. Coming right up." As they hopped out of bed, he put on his boxers while she slipped into a plush, unbelievably soft bathrobe that she brought over to wear at his house should the need arise. They then headed to the kitchen. This time, she offered to help him make breakfast by standing beside him the whole time, holding his arm, while watching him do all the work. Her job? To smile and keep his company right by his side. She would massage and maybe gently scratch his bare back while he cracked the eggs and poured them into the skillet. Whether facing the counter to slice and dice the mushrooms and other ingredients, or the stove where he cooked everything, she was right there beside him or behind him, hugging him with her arms wrapped around his body and waist, all while resting her head on his back. Since he noticed her wanting to be near him like this, he took everything real slow. There was no rushing to make breakfast that day, per se. Every move he made sure she could model him and be part of his every move. In doing so, they were able to kiss a lot in between breakfast-making duties. With everything he did, she got a kiss. Every time he was standing still, she would kiss his body, arms, back, shoulders. Kissing was part of everything, every body part, every action, and just for the sake of kissing. Why not? This particular breakfast wasn't just your ordinary breakfast either. No, it was soon becoming another scene of love and close fondling mixed in with sensual pleasures, fully exposed, open robe visuals of her for him to see, and much more. As he finished cooking the omelet, he slid it onto a plate. He then asked her to grab some of the berries out of the fridge. With a few berries on the side and a large glass of orange juice to share, they headed back to the bedroom. Stripping off their clothes, they got back into bed naked to enjoy his evermost delicious, world-famous omelet kitchen creation, blueberries, and some orange juice. He fed her, she fed him. He would put a few blueberries in his mouth, lean over to kiss her, and pass them over to her with his tongue as their lips and mouth joined and opened up. She lovingly accepted. This was sexy and romantic to her at the same time. One bite after another, the omelet was soon disappearing. He'd reach for the orange juice on the nightstand, take a quick swig, then let her have a sip too. Not only were they consuming the same meal and beverage together, they were also consuming each other. The thing was, she just couldn't get over this treatment of her. She had never had breakfast in bed with any of the boys she dated in her past. Not men, as they are now being considered, but boys. She never shared a meal with anyone like this in the past either. She never shared a meal with anyone like this in bed like this in the past. She had never spent so much time hugging, holding, kissing, and standing next to a man who was so into preparing these meals for the two of them. This was a whole new world. This whole new world that she was getting used to started to become very attractive to her. A world she might not want to leave if she were to spend more time there. Since she worked for herself, she didn't necessarily have to go home anytime soon, so she pondered the thought of staying at his place for a few more days if he wanted her to. "How's the omelet?" he asked. "Delicious. Is everything you make always this good?" "Thank you. Well, I do my best. Want the last bite?" "Yes," she exclaimed. "Okay, say ah." "Ah." As he fed her the last bite and then kissed her on the lips, while she chewed, he talked.